we are going to start part 2 of the painting. This is how we had left it before. So we were using the green color, the light green color, to establish some of these planters and, you know, trees and plants. It's not a bright green actually. Here it's more of a yellow white color, and that's what I wanted for this particular area. Okay, so make sure that you wipe out the excess paint firmly using paper towel. After that, you dunk your brush in water, cleaning it very, very well from the acrylic. If you leave acrylic on your brushes, it is plastic and it dries fast and it ruins your brushes. So after putting it in water, you just dry it again and you realize how clean it is. It's not that difficult, and you have that brush ready. Always have paper towels ready by your side. Some people actually hold it on the left hand, which is what I'm doing, the non-dominant hand. So now what I want to do is start introducing a bit of detail. So normally you have seen, if you have seen my other videos, I like to paint with big brushes. I'm going to be introducing a small filbert brush. This is the Simply Simmons brand filbert, and it's a tiny brush. Well, some people won't consider this tiny, but for what I'm used to using, and you know, let's compare. I was using this other one. We are going to make sure that some of the details on the two lions are clear, at least that they look like animals, dogs or cats or whatever. Well, lions or cats. So I'm using the dark color that we had originally because I'm going to try to paint around this lion. So the mane of the lion goes here, and then it has a very nice back. It's like goes up in the back, and then the leg goes down. So I'm painting around the lion. I am not painting the lion. And then we paint here behind this, and the belly goes down like this. Actually, it's like a more graceful inverted, no, actually more graceful U. So I will fix that. And now that I have this dark color, you just go around and reestablish those corners, right? And this one here has a ledge, so you can paint the shadow of that ledge and paint with the dark. We sort of make corrections to the shapes. As you can see, the original dark was very soupy, and now it's getting a bit transparent, so you almost see like just red in there. And the dark is, well, I'm assuming you watched the first video. If you just found this one, I recommend you see the other video where I started this painting. So the darks are established with basically alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. It's just a dark color, and it can be, you know, warmer, like in this case has a little bit of the yellow. It's all of this is greenery. Okay, and I'm just trying to make sure that I can get the shape more or less of this lion. And it had a very tiny area of light in the muzzle. And then in between the two legs, there's a space. So maybe this leg has to go a bit more. It's like a triangle between the two legs, and I will establish that other leg. I think the Habsburg shield of arms is easier to paint than the lions. Okay. I have another small brush. In this case, it's also the Simply Simmons series, and it's a bright. Basically, what I'm going to do is, I told you this had to be like a U shape here, and it's just water, so I can sort of clean it a bit, and then we will paint with other color. All right, so let's go on with the dark here around this planter and this plant. See how sometimes just painting in the negative colors, you get a nice shape of what you are trying to say in your painting, that this is a planter on top of this particular piece of wall. You don't need to be very specific or fill out everything. And then I'm going to reestablish this dark. You can see that I sort of moved away from the lions. I think they're giving me a bit of a challenge, and I'm thinking, how am I gonna resolve it? Okay, so these darks, you know, that's fine. You don't need to be too specific with your brush strokes. Some areas in this wall had I think they probably would need a bit of repair, but looks actually interesting and nice. Okay, so this area of the shield also is in the dark because there's a dark vegetation behind, and the shield is actually more square than what I painted it. So just correcting, and it was big. I mean, I guess the Habsburgs wanted to make a big statement. I think this was actually Charles I of Spain. Okay. And it's like a crown. Okay. And I think this lion is going to benefit from painting a bit of red. I like the red of this image anyway, and I think this hump was too much, although it's nice. Sometimes when you're painting something that's really small, you don't need to exaggerate that much, and it still would create the idea of the back leg. And you know, there's a little bit of a shadow area and a shadow area here. And we had left it like in the original red. I like the red showing through. That's why I decided to try to make this painting with red. This particular lion doesn't have that much, and I normally hold the brush in the back, but I'm far away from the canvas, and I want to just make sure that these elements, so this has the leg, one leg there, and the other leg goes down here, and this back, in this case, his back is in the shadow. Okay. I'm going to clean this particular brush because I think it's working really nice for some details, and and I'm going to try to use it with the lighter color. So as you can see, it's not completely clean as when you finish your sessions. I normally do with soap and water, but it will work. It's not that bad. And I had some of this orangey color that I had used in some of these areas, and that's going to bring harmony to the painting. So I'm going to add a little bit of this color in here for the face of the lion, and then here for this area of the lion. And now the front leg does get a little bit of light. I think the light must have been coming from the top. Now the back of the lion is the one that was lighter. Definitely it's getting more of the light, and the legs. This underbelly is less light. And the other area that was getting a lot of light was the mane, and for some reason I think I lost a bit of that mane. Okay, and then there was a tiny edge of light. Well, I think it's going to be okay. This one was getting more of the light in the front, and then also we had light in the front paw coming here, and that ball where the paw was resting, and then light here in the back, and the back hump, a little bit of light. All right, there's a bright light here. Sometimes you just look at the photograph for reference, or if you're painting on site, and you just see, where do I see this color? So I'm going back to that orangey color, and I'm going to establish this particular wall behind the planters that was getting the light. So this wall was also bright, getting all the light. In here, it is probably, I'm going to use now more of the yellowish color rather than the pink color for this particular area. And you can see that I am using thicker paint, because with panels, with these wood panels, they don't take the paint as well, or maybe they are actually absorbing the paint a lot more faster, and that's why I have to put more paint and more layers. So with canvas, I'm used to painting very thin, and I sometimes leave the thin areas not painted. Finding I'm struggling a bit with this particular panel more than normal, but that's fine. That's perfectly fine. And we are going to now establish some other lights, bright lights on this particular tree. So this tree was getting the light really sort of on the top, and the right, if you see, as we see it from the right. Okay, other area that was also kind of bright, so I'm using the same yellowish bright color, was this corner. And it's not very well defined on what exactly this corner is. It's in the shade, in the shadow, and there's some areas where it's getting some light, and some areas where it's getting some of these trees are sort of trickling down or falling down on it. And the other area that was bright is this one. So just establish that bright again in layers. And you know, it doesn't really matter if this pile has a little bit of the blue with making it a bit greener. That's fine. It's the piles are all in your same painting, so this makes it more harmony of colors by using the same color wherever you see the light. And the eye is driven to the sharp contrasts where we have light against dark. So that's why I liked this photo when I took it. It was one of those days that had been raining. I actually remember having my umbrella in Granada and getting wet because the rain was not coming down. It was windy too. So at this time, when I was actually coming through this Patio de la Sultana, a ray of light came out, and it just marked a beautiful, beautiful stairway. And I remember telling the guide, wait, I need to take a photo of that. Okay, what I did is I tried to make it brighter on that end, but because it doesn't seem brighter, I am using now this salmony pinkish color to sort of bring it a bit darker on this end, and that way it will look lighter on this end here. And I will be using also a little bit of that salmony color here in the lion's face, and the lion's belly should have a bit more of the reddish salmony color. And I think perhaps I made it a bit fat. So I'm going to be changing that with dark around. Okay, for this particular end, for the other lion, I am going to use a bit more of the purple. I hope it's not too dark. I think it was too dark. So I just mixed it with the pinkish color that I had, so that it's a purple color, but not too dark, because I think this back is too dark. And that way we can have the hind legs, and we can have the head of the lion. With its mane. And I think we lost definition of the lion there. So we just used the darker color. Again here, we are going to make this lion, we're gonna put it on diet. And shape. Sometimes I'm sorry I'm too quiet because this needs precision. And I don't know, I guess that when we have to do precision painting, we tend to be quiet. Okay, I'm just making this head. And the tricky part with that lion, I did mention that before, is that it is against a bright background and the lion is bright. So I'm having a bit of difficulty so that we can differentiate what's lion and what's the back vegetation. So I made this vegetation darker than what it is. Yeah, it is darker than what I see, but I think it helps define that other lion a bit better. And I think if I use a bit of the purple for the lion, it's going to make this image easier. And then I will put a bright accent on the paws. P-A-W-S. Okay, and this lion now has, I think it's should be more square. That's fine. I'm using the purple. You can use the purple too, to define this, although it should have been all clear, but I think this is gonna, then I just put the accents and it's probably gonna read better because it's weird. I don't know what's wrong with my proportions now, but I'm glad you're seeing it. It is fixable. So now we have this area and we're gonna use an area of purple for some of this back end. This is gonna push things farther in the image. Okay, clean the brush. Clean it with water. Because I'm going to be using a bit of the larger brush to establish a bit more of this purple area here. This is all in the shade, okay, in the shadow. And some brush strokes are good to have the horizontal brush strokes. This was sort of, I don't think this was stone. I think it's brick work. And on top of it, there's probably stucco. And so this is more darker blue because I want to differentiate, push it a bit back on the tree, and the tree is going to have some holes that are going to be showing the back. This is painting, negative painting of the tree, and of course this side of the tree is in the shadow, so we are going to make sure that the shadow is showing more of the purplish color. So I will probably be re-establishing that a little bit more. Here, I did mention this is the darkest area in here. It's the darkest area. And correspondingly, this is also dark because it's receded from this line. Okay, so now let's work a little bit. It's always good. I had trouble with the lions. I'm gonna try to re-establish them a bit more, and by moving away from what's giving you a bit trouble, it's always a good idea so that you can start working on the other areas. This was like a double arch, and the area in the inner area was receded. So I'm just making this line. You can do that too. And then with this same dark color, where I have some alizarin crimson and ultramarine, not necessarily all mixed, you just make some lines. Try to make them so that the angles show these bricks are going in the appropriate angles. And this is sort of, it's a nice touch. You don't need to paint each one, is because it's in the dark, so you don't need to do all of them. And this area here should be lighter, so I'm mixing it with the salmony color that I had before. And let's see, yes, it's sort of the color. The advantage of using limited colors is that it's not difficult to recreate what you had before, and especially if you have in your palette the colors, that's fine. So then we're just gonna insinuate some areas here with sort of a horizontal lines for some bricks in here. Some of them are getting more attention, I should say, than others. And you saw me doing the brush strokes differently before. It's difficult for me to reach, but I think this is gonna work nicer now. Wipe it, and with a little bit of water on that same brush, I'm just going to try to lose some of these definitions of these bricks so that it would look less on your face and more painterly. Hopefully. Okay. So sometimes for the width of architectural elements, what I recommend you to do, well, what I do, because I'm not very good painting architectural elements, and I don't know why I chose this for this demo. I'm starting to regret having done this, but I hope you are enjoying and that you actually feel that you do want to challenge me and paint it. But what I do, I was telling you, is I use the width of my brush for the width of architectural elements, because that's easier for me rather than using something that's smaller than my brush, especially if you are painting in an angle like I am. The camera is straight forward towards you so that you can see it, you can see the painting better. So that's the reason why it's tough for me. But I hope you are getting a good idea of what this is. And again, you know, for this particular wall, what am I doing now is just making or trying to make sure that this line is going straight up so that you can see it's a wall. You see what happens to me, it may be happening to you, so don't despair. Clean your brush, clean again, and maybe with this smaller brush I'm going to re-establish the purple line of this wall, and hopefully I can go down. I mean, I can go down, but hopefully I can do it in a more straight line with a nice purple color. Because, you know, architectural elements, that's a challenge with them, that you do need to try to make them straight, unless you're painting the Tower of Pisa. Then you better get the right angle, I guess. Okay, I think that can work. It's not perfect, but that can work. Wow. Okay, same sort of purple. It's not very dark. It does have a little bit of the light salmon-y color that we had. I'm using the same colors. So we are going to reestablish a bit of these darker areas on the stairs. And it's on the left. The right-hand side was a bit brighter. So on the right, we have less of purple. And on the right, we are going to have a bit more of a different sort of a yellowish color, but not as yellow as this one. And then there's one thing here that was interesting and I missed, which is this. There's an area here that goes up, but it's more like a reddish type tone. So I'm just going to use Alizarin Crimson on my brush, and here it's just establishing these first steps over here. You see what happens when I did not chisel my edge very well. And then we could see some sort of a wall that came down here. So this was like a straight wall here, and there was a shadow, which I think may be coming from some of the trees that were here. So we're gonna go back to the purple color and paint that shadow was going straight down. And then sort of dappled lights. Some of this area of purple shadow came overlapping or sort of fell on the steps. So I think it's coming from some of these trees. That's what I think it is. Okay, now we're gonna add that salmon-y color to the dirty color that we have. And this is gonna be for this other end of the steps. They have a bit more of a lighter color, so I'm gonna try to do this as fast as I can because I would like to make sure that the colors are not completely two separate colors like you see here. They are sort of not blending completely. It is lighter on the right hand side than on the left, and that's what I wanted. And sometimes I use vertical, sometimes horizontal. It just depends how comfortable I am feeling with this particular angle and what I am painting. So now we're gonna go for a lighter, so I'm just mixing the lighter color with the same brush. I didn't clean the brush. So with this same color, we had some areas here on the dappled light of brighter color. And I think most importantly, there was like an edge here that was sort of getting the light, and this was from the chiseled edge, and just paint the border here of this arch that was getting that light, and there was sort of a little bit of a light in here too. I don't know where that was coming from. Okay, and now we actually paint these planters have this plants on top, and these plants had some, there's some dappled, well, it's not dappled, it's just seeing through these plants. I am going to dare to use white, mostly white. I'd never like to do that, but this particular area in the back is very, very light. And I need to make sure that I have the right angle of my brush. So this is gonna be a bit daring, but this area is going to be very bright, and I want to bring the white in there, right? So I had to put it in this corner because of the way that I am painting. That way I just put a blob in there and just move it down. And this is where most of the light is coming. And let's see if I can manage to do that. We should be seeing a bit of these angles, or you know, straight down and horizontal, down and horizontal, to give the impression of the steps. So that's the brightest area of the painting, together with an area of these lines. So because I have that white already, there's bright, and it's the white, but it's on top of the area that I already had, like the salmony color. So here, bright dab of light, of the white in there. Same here. So on this particular corner, we have a very bright area. In all of these were getting very bright sunlight. Okay. This too was a very light sunlight. Bright. Okay, and what's happening is the trees on top are producing some of that dappled light. So in that case, it's like the shadow of the trees that are on top of here that we will define a bit better. Okay. I think it's time for me to add a bit more of the green of this tree. Oh, that looked very blue. I didn't expect that. So we could, it's good this happened while I'm painting, because it can happen to you too. Yellow, more yellow. Okay, so this is gonna be establishing a bit more of this tree. I don't know exactly what kind of tree that was. It was not yellow, but it definitely was not blue. Blue would bring it towards the back. So even though I did want to have it more yellow, I did not want to have it yellow, yellow, yellow. So I am introducing Viridian green and a little bit of cadmium yellow. It's all in the description below, because I think it does need, it does need to have a bit more of depth and color in here. We will establish a bit more of that light from using cadmium yellow. And here it's good to reestablish. This was actually, there was a bright green peeping through. So why not? We're gonna use the cadmium yellow on that end here. And it's just sort of, you see how potent and strong is that cadmium yellow. So we're gonna use it against this lion